Sometimes the people we look up to for strength and wisdom find themselves in their darkest moments, needing the very support they've given to millions of others. Today, we're talking about Judge Lynn Toler, a woman who spent decades helping families navigate their most difficult times on divorce court, and how she's been navigating one of life's most challenging journeys, grief. In January 2023, Judge Toler announced the devastating news that her husband of 33 years, Eric "Big E" Mumford, had passed away on December 23, 2022, writing, "I am in a million pieces." But what happened next shows us the true power of community, love, and the healing that comes when we support each other through our darkest hours. If you're new here, welcome. Today's conversation is going to be different. We're talking about loss, healing, and the incredible strength that comes from vulnerability. If you or someone you know is going through grief, I hope this brings you some comfort. And please, hit that subscribe button if you want more meaningful conversations like this one. Because what Judge Toler has shared about her grief journey isn't just her story, it's a roadmap for anyone who has ever loved and lost. Before we talk about loss, we need to understand what was lost. Because the love story between Judge Lynn Toler and Eric Mumford wasn't just a celebrity marriage, it was a testament to what real partnership looks like. Judge Toler and Eric Mumford married on April 6, 1989, and their relationship became the foundation for everything she taught about love, commitment, and making relationships work. For over 3 decades, Eric wasn't just her husband, he was her anchor, her biggest supporter, and the person who helped her become the woman millions of viewers came to trust. You see, Judge Toler didn't just talk about healthy relationships on TV, she lived it. Eric brought 4 children into their marriage, and together they blended their family with love and intention. Toler has 2 sons and 4 stepsons, and watching her over the years, you could see how her personal experience with love, patience, and commitment shaped every piece of advice she gave. Eric was often described as her "Big E," this gentle giant who supported her career, celebrated her success, and provided the stability that allowed her to pour into other people's relationships for decades. He was the reason she could speak with such authority about what real love looks like, because she was living it every single day. But here's what made their love special: it wasn't perfect, and Judge Toler never pretended it was. She would often share stories about their disagreements, their challenges, and how they worked through problems together. Their marriage became a teaching tool because it was authentic, real, and built on the principles she advocated for on the show. When Eric suddenly passed away at 72 years old in December 2022, Judge Toler didn't just lose her husband, she lost her best friend, her co-parent, her business partner, and the person who had been by her side through every major milestone of her adult life. And that's when something beautiful happened. The community she had served for so long stepped up to serve her back. Judge Toler described the moment she learned about Eric's passing during an appearance on the Hardly Initiated podcast. She was on the treadmill as he was leaving the house, and they said goodbye to each other. Hours later, she received a phone call telling her that her husband was in critical condition in the hospital. Can you imagine? One moment you're saying a casual goodbye to the love of your life, and hours later, your entire world has changed forever. Judge Toler later shared, "I spent the first weeks just not believing," a sentiment that anyone who has experienced sudden loss understands all too well. When she shared the news on social media, something incredible happened. The same people who had watched her help others through their darkest moments stepped up to help her through hers. People prayed for Toler and her family, and the outpouring of love gave her the comfort she needed to navigate the grieving process. But this wasn't just people sending thoughts and prayers and moving on. This was a sustained, intentional effort to wrap her in love during her most vulnerable time. Fans shared their own stories of loss and how Judge Toler's advice had helped them. They sent messages about how her wisdom had saved their marriages, helped them through divorces, or taught them how to co-parent effectively. They reminded her of all the lives she had touched, all the families she had helped heal. But more than that, they showed up for her the way she had shown up for them. They didn't just consume her content, they became a community of support, lifting her up when she couldn't lift herself. And Judge Toler, in her characteristic way, turned her pain into purpose. Instead of withdrawing from the public eye, she began sharing her grief journey openly and honestly, giving people permission to grieve authentically and showing them that healing is possible even in the darkest moments. What happened next wasn't just beautiful, it was transformative. Judge Toler began using her platform not just to help people with their relationships, but to help them navigate loss, grief, and the process of rebuilding your life when everything you thought was permanent suddenly changes. Because that's what real leaders do, they turn their wounds into wisdom and their pain into purpose. Judge Toler has been sharing her profound journey through emotional healing after the sudden loss of her husband, opening up about redefining her emotional responses to overcome trauma and fit the present rather than being anchored in past experiences. This is where Judge Toler's message becomes so powerful for anyone dealing with grief. She's not just telling people to get over it or move on, she's showing them how to honor their grief while still choosing to live fully. Known for her wisdom on emotional intelligence, Judge Toler has equipped herself with the tools to be a beacon of support for friends facing their own emotional hurdles. But here's what makes her approach so special: she's not pretending to have all the answers. She's walking the path of healing in real time and sharing what she's learning along the way. Through her podcast, Feeling on Purpose, Judge Toler has been having conversations about grief that go beyond the surface level. She talks about the practical aspects of rebuilding your life after loss, how to make decisions when you're grieving, how to honor your person's memory while creating new experiences, how to find joy again without feeling guilty. But here's what I love most about her approach: she's not rushing her healing. In a culture that wants people to bounce back quickly from loss, Judge Toler is showing us that grief isn't a problem to be solved, it's a process to be honored. She's talked openly about how the first weeks were spent not believing her reality. She's shared how some days are harder than others, how certain memories can bring both comfort and pain, and how healing isn't linear, it's messy and unpredictable and deeply personal. And through sharing her own journey, she's giving permission to her fans who are grieving to be honest about their own struggles. She's creating space for people to say, "This is hard, and it's okay that it's hard." One of the most powerful things she's shared is the idea that grief is love with nowhere to go. When someone we love dies, all that love doesn't disappear, it just needs to find new ways to be expressed. And she's been showing people how to channel that love into healing, into service, into connections with others who understand. Her transformation has equipped her with the tools to be a beacon of support for friends facing their own emotional hurdles. She's taken her personal experience with loss and turned it into a resource for others, showing them that it's possible to be broken and whole at the same time, to grieve deeply and still find reasons to smile. And that message of hope in the midst of pain is exactly what her fans needed to hear. What Judge Toler did by sharing her grief journey openly created something beautiful, a ripple effect of healing that extended far beyond her own experience. When public figures go through personal tragedies, they often retreat from the spotlight to grieve privately, and that's completely understandable. But Judge Toler chose a different path. She chose vulnerability over privacy, community over isolation, and in doing so, she created space for thousands of other people to process their own grief. The comments on her social media posts and podcast episodes became a gathering place for people who had lost spouses, parents, children, friends. People shared their stories, their struggles, their small victories in healing. What started as Judge Toler's personal grief journey became a community of mutual support and understanding. This is what happens when someone with influence uses their platform responsibly. Instead of just entertaining people or selling products, Judge Toler used her pain to create connection, her vulnerability to build community, and her healing process to light the way for others walking similar paths. She's shown people that grief doesn't have to be something you go through alone. That healing can happen in community. That sharing your story can help other people feel less isolated in their own struggles. But here's what's really remarkable: through helping others process their grief, Judge Toler has been healing herself. There's something powerful that happens when we turn our pain into service, when we use our struggles to help lift others up. She's talked about how reading people's stories, hearing about their losses, and being able to offer comfort and guidance has helped her find purpose in her pain. It hasn't taken away her grief, but it's given her grief meaning. And that's a lesson for all of us, that our struggles don't have to be wasted. That our pain can become our purpose if we're willing to be vulnerable enough to share it and strong enough to use it in service of others. Judge Toler's message to her grieving fans isn't just, "You'll get through this," it's, "We'll get through this together." She's shown them that healing is possible, that community matters, and that love doesn't end when someone dies, it just transforms into something different but equally powerful. So what can we learn from Judge Toler's journey through grief? Because her experience isn't just about losing a spouse, it's about how to navigate any major loss or life transition with grace, authenticity, and hope. First lesson: grief is not something to get over, it's something to grow through. Judge Toler hasn't tried to rush her healing or pretend she's moved on. Instead, she's shown us how to carry grief in a way that honors what was lost while still making space for new experiences and joy. Second lesson: community is essential in healing. The outpouring of love from her fans didn't just comfort Judge Toler, it reminded her of her purpose, her impact, and her value beyond her role as Eric's wife. When we're grieving, we often lose sight of who we are outside of the relationship we've lost. Community can help reflect back to us our full identity. Third lesson: vulnerability is strength, not weakness. By sharing her struggles openly, Judge Toler gave other people permission to be honest about their own pain. She showed that it's okay to not be okay, that healing isn't pretty or linear, and that real strength sometimes looks like admitting you're broken. Fourth lesson: our pain can become our purpose. Judge Toler could have retreated from public life after Eric's death. Instead, she chose to use her experience to help others. She's turned her grief into guidance, her loss into a lifeline for other people walking similar paths. Fifth lesson: love doesn't die when someone dies. Through her grief journey, Judge Toler has shown us that the love she shared with Eric for 33 years didn't disappear when he passed away. It transformed. It became the foundation for how she serves others, how she approaches relationships, how she finds meaning in her daily life. And perhaps most importantly, healing doesn't mean forgetting. Judge Toler hasn't tried to move on from Eric or replace what they had. Instead, she's learned how to carry him with her, how to honor their love story while still writing new chapters of her own life. Her message to grieving fans is ultimately one of hope, not the shallow kind that dismisses pain, but the deep kind that acknowledges pain and still believes in the possibility of joy, connection, and purpose on the other side of loss. She's shown us that it's possible to be grateful for what was while still being open to what could be. To miss someone deeply while still choosing to live fully. To be changed by loss without being destroyed by it. Judge Lynn Toler's journey through grief reminds us that healing happens in community, that vulnerability is a gift we give to others, and that our darkest moments can become the foundation for our greatest service to the world. The outpouring of love from her fans gave her the comfort she needed to navigate the grieving process, but more than that, it created a circle of healing that continues to ripple outward, touching lives and bringing comfort to people she may never meet. If you're grieving today, know that you're not alone. If you're supporting someone through loss, know that your presence matters more than your words. And if you're wondering how to find purpose in your pain, Judge Toler's example shows us that sometimes the answer is simply to reach out and help carry someone else's burden alongside your own. Thanks for joining me for this conversation. If this touched your heart, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, healing is possible, community matters, and love never really dies, it just finds new ways to shine.